This time I'll call the Budget Committee meeting to order and ask Angela to please call roll.
Kaler. Here. Hannum.
Here.
Lewis. Here. Mitchell.
Here.
Moon.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Now I ask for the emergency announcement to be read, please.
Before we get started, let me read the emergency evacuation procedures. In the event of an emergency evacuation, an alarm will sound. Everyone should exit the building by way of the nearest stairwell in a safe and effective manner. If the nearest stairwell is blocked by smoke, use the other stairwell. Do not use the elevator. Once you have reached the main floor, follow the exit signs to exit the building and quickly proceed away from the building. Please be mindful of others evacuating and of emergency vehicles.
Thank you. I'll now ask if there's any public input on items on the agenda. Input on items on the agenda. Seeing none, item D, the minutes. They're in the packet that need your approval from July the 11th, 2016. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions on the minutes? I'll ask for a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. I'll declare that motion passed. Item E1A on the finance portion of the agenda, school 1.639 million, an amendment to the fiscal year 16-17 budget.
Mr. Chairman, I move we send it forward.
Have a motion to send this item forward. Do I have a second? Second. Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions? Okay. Go ahead. Rob, you or Troy want to come to the... Commissioner? Sharon, go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Britt.
Ms. Hannum, how are you tonight?
I'm blessed, thank you. I have a couple of questions. The first one being, may I ask two questions, Mr. Chair? The first one being, how does this request, or how will this request affect our maintenance of effort?
Yeah. The request to increase fund balance will not have any effect on maintenance of effort.
Can you elaborate?
I think Mr. Logan probably can. He's our resident expert on maintenance of effort.
Thank you.
Basically, there's three parts on the revenue side of the budget increase, one being $2,000 for BEP, which obviously does not affect maintenance of effort. That just aligns with what the final amounts were from the state. As Mr. Britt said, fund balance will not impact maintenance of effort. Never does, never will. It doesn't affect local requirement. The increase of $397,000 on sales tax, only if we get in a major economic downturn, which will require a major recession, would that impact maintenance of effort going forward. That's what it would take in order for sales tax to be pulled back in any way. It would have to be a serious recession type of event. Outside of that, I don't believe it will impact maintenance of effort.
Okay, thank you. Now, my second question is, I'm reading the memo. Is the memo referring to, in some of the requests that will be cut, is that a school board request, or is this cutting existing positions?
These were requests that were in the budget request for new items or new positions, so they were not existing in the budget last year. They had started out as a request for new positions or new things in the budget.
For the 2016-2017
Yes, ma'am.
budget year?
Yes, and they elected to pull those off and not ask for, they cut those out of the original budget request.
Okay.
But they were new positions.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
Mr. Logan, I'm looking at the memo. I received numerous phone calls from constituents that dealt with a statement that was allegedly made in a meeting. It said that the longevity step wouldn't be funded unless the Blount County Commission voted. Basically, their longevity step for retiring employees was being held hostage by action of the commission. First of all, I'd like to know, was that statement made in a public meeting before 30 to 40 potentially retiring school employees? They said it was going to cost them between $4,000 and $8,000 each. And I don't see the longevity step as one of the items being cut. I think we're having some technical difficulties.
Can you hear me? To my knowledge, to answer your first question, no, I do not know of that being specifically said in a public meeting. The longevity step is included in this budget request amendment, so it's still in the budget, total budget request. It has not been cut from the budget. As you know, the commission does not line item or tell the school board how to spend their money. You appropriate a total budget, and the school board determines or decides how they can spend those funds as you've approved. What we did was, in without this budget amendment being passed, we had $1.7 million that the board had approved originally that had not been approved by a full commission in total. So we, on our side, the school side, had to hold some things back and couldn't spend that $1,639,000 until we had some approval from the full commission for the total appropriated budget. And that longevity step was one of the things that we held and said we can't do this yet until we get full appropriations approval from county commission. Does that answer your question, Commissioner?
It does. I'm still looking for that item, and what was sent forward to us as something that would be eliminated, and I don't see that in the documents we sent forward.
It's still in the budget request. We did not cut that.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Logan. I appreciate it for clarifying that issue. Thank you.
Discussion for Mr. Logan. Seeing none, we'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Kaler.
Yes.
Hannum.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Mitchell.
Yes.
Moon.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item E1B, Circuit Court Clerk, $14,000. This is funds from the Data Processing Reserve. Do I hear a motion to send this on?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Have a motion. Do I have a second? Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
What's the balance in the reserve this time? Mr. Chairman?
I'll send this to Mr. Vineyard.
Approximately 345,000.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions or discussion? I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Kaler.
Yes.
Hannum.
Yes.
Lewis. Mitchell.
Yes.
Moon.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item E1C, this is from the Animal Center, $33,054. Needs appropriation of funds due to the loss of the inmate labor at the Animal Center, which they relied on quite heavily. Do I have a motion to send this on?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion or questions?
No question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'll ask Mr. Rafford, would you please come up?
Oh. Had a number of phone calls this morning, and then I went on one of the local Facebook pages, local media. I'd like you to respond to this Facebook post. Learn how to manage a budget, or use one of those other 300 prisoners hanging around over there. I don't agree with this statement, but I think the public, since it is being out in social media and other media, should be addressed. Mr. Rayford, could you respond to the allegation that the budget's being mismanaged?
Yes, sir, I believe I can. First of all, I don't control the 300 inmates that are hanging around and not working, so that's not really part of my responsibility. I am responsible for my budget. The budget that I actually control out of my $415,000 budget from fiscal year 15-16, I had control of $105,000. Of that, we had unused budget at the end of the year, which I think is very fiscally responsible, yet we were able to operate our center in a most efficient and effective manner. We also generated quite a few fees, and when you look at the total cost of what it cost me to operate my center last year, it was $260,000 to the taxpayers, which was considerably less than the $415,000 that I was budgeted for. So I think that's pretty good management of the budget. I don't know about other department heads in this county, but in my previous career, I took budgeting and grant writing through the FBI National Academy, session 210 in Quantico, Virginia. I was taught how to manage a budget, and I have years and years of experience as a chief law enforcement executive in managing a budget. So I don't think I've been fiscally irresponsible with my budget at all. I think we manage it and do quite a number of things with the money that we're allocated.
So you think it's appropriate then to ask for part-time people versus replacing the full hours that are being used at the center?
Well, I've lost approximately 137 labor hours when the 2 inmates were pulled. We're a 7-day-a-week, 365-day-a-year operation. The inmates were with our staff when they were at the center, and I have a staff member at the center 68.5 hours a week. In order to replace those with full-time employees, I would be standing in front of you requesting in excess of $111,000. Instead, I'm requesting $33,054 to try and staff 53 hours with part-time employees, which cost the county a minimum, doesn't cost them anything for benefits, it costs them a minimum about $3,000+ for the taxes and et cetera that they have to pay these 2 part-time employees. So the total cost is $33,000. By requesting the part-time employees, the way I've scheduled them is there'll be 1 part-time employee there every day for at least 8 hours. On Sundays, we're only there for 5. So I'm requesting 1 29-hour employee, which is the part-time limit, and then the other one for 24. I'm doing the best that I can to keep the cost to the taxpayers down, while at the same time trying to make up for 137 lost labor hours.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Charles, what will be your action taken if the part-time doesn't get the job done?
Well, sir, I'd have to reappear before this committee. You know, I'm willing to give it a shot and do the very best that we can. You know, I have an excellent staff, but since I didn't see this coming when I wrote my 16-17 fiscal year budget, I couldn't anticipate this. So my budget is set, and I'm between a rock and a hard place here. But if it's not sufficient, then I'll reappear before this committee and request whatever I think is sufficient to cover it, to cover our needs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Charles.
I have a question.
Yes.
Actually, my question will probably be directed towards Chief Cantrell, if he could please answer a question.
Chris?
I too, like Commissioner Moon, have looked at some of the things on social media and read some of the statements. I'm not going to take our time to read those. I'm sure you probably have. But it seems that the emphasis is not put on the fact that the animal shelter is in dire straits and needs assistance. It's work the inmates, work the inmates, work the inmates. Could you briefly tell us what is involved in order to vet an inmate to be able to work out in the public, much as the ones that were working at the animal shelter before?
We have what I feel is a very thorough and good classification process that decides whether an inmate is able to work. Through that classification process, we learn if they're cleared to just work inside or if they can actually work outside. It's not an easy process, and not everyone is approved. Some could pass the classification process as far as their criminal history, but may not be medically cleared through our medical unit to be able to work. So it's just not saying you're a sentenced inmate, we're going to put you to work. It's not that easy.
If an inmate that was working at any of the numerous things that they used to do were to commit a crime, say a violent act and injure one of our citizens, who's responsible and who's liable for that?
Well, if there was a violent act in their past, for one, they wouldn't be working.
Okay.
But if there was a violent act that was committed by one of the inmates, I would feel that we are the ones who put them out there.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Anything else? Any other discussion? Go ahead. Okay. Sure.
Mr. Radford, I have one question. In the loss of the labor that you're suffering, are you already beginning to get behind in some of your critical operations?
Yes, ma'am.
How long will it take you, do you think? Just a guess. I know you have no way of knowing positively, but might it take you to replace this labor? The hiring process?
Well, it's probably going to take a couple weeks, ma'am. You know, I think the minimum we have to advertise a position is a week, and then we'd have to schedule interviews depending on how many candidates we have. And then we'd get them on board from there. So I'd say at a minimum 2 or 3 weeks before we have somebody working.
I'm tempted to think that perhaps you've been generous in only asking for 2 part-time employees at 50-some hours and you're already behind. Is it conceivable that that might not be enough to take care of your needs for this year?
Well, it's possible, ma'am, but I didn't want to ask for more than that right now. I'm hoping that by having one additional person every day, that we can gauge how we do, you know, how we're doing, and if we do need to revisit it in the future. But I thought this was a good starting point, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner?
And Charles, this may be for you. Chris, this may be for you. But the question I have is on the labor that we used from inmates, the distinction between using that labor from a state prisoner as opposed to using that labor from a local prisoner, and why we make those decisions that we do.
It's the local prisoners. Some may only be sentenced for 30 days, and by the time the classification process is over, you know, you're not looking at having that much availability from that inmate. With the state sentenced inmates, we know that their time's longer. We know they're going to be here longer, and obviously they get the 2-for-1 credits. And it just we've learned that through the ones who we know are going to be here longer. They're going to invest the time in doing it right, and they have more to have taken off of their sentence.
So basically, it's an efficiency and a productivity issue to be able to use those prisoners who have longer term sentences as opposed to shorter term.
Yes.
Thank you.
I've got a follow-up question, Chief, if you don't care.
Yes, sir.
Since we're talking about the local state, tell us or explain to us, please, the not using federal prisoners. Explain, we can't, is
We
that correct?
can't. That's just, we can't.
Okay, how many state prisoners did we have actively working in laundry, cooking, picking up litter, helping at the animal shelter? How many did we have?
How many did we have?
30 days ago, a month ago, how many did we have working?
We would
out?
average anywhere between 40 to 50
How many do we
at a
have
time
now?
working.
How many do we have now?
We probably have, and I'm just thinking roughly off the top of my head, we
You don't have to be exact, just
probably around 20,
Okay.
maybe less than 20. And what we're running is we're running what's essential at our building. And we would love to be able to have inmates to send to the animal shelter, to send to the city of Friendsville when they were finishing their water line. Luckily, through the efforts of the mayor, our legislators, the sheriff, they were able to stop what Commissioner Monroe had started and save the citizens of Blount County a lot of money if we would have had to look at contracting the services out. But, we're running laundry, we're running kitchen, the litter control, the litter crews out. I know they fluctuate between 2 and 4. You were looking at possible thousands pounds of trash left on Blount County roadways a year, and maintenance that services here at the courthouse and at the Justice Center, as well as the car wash and mechanics helping out with the upkeep and the maintenance of our vehicles.
thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? I want to take this opportunity to say that the people of Blount County get a tremendous bang for their buck with our animal center. With the volunteers that we have, the donations we have, our partnership with SMAC-F, it takes very little of what the total cost is out of the taxpayers to run that animal center because of the help we have. This is a major hit. By losing these inmates, it is a major hit. I have all the faith in the world, though, that Charlie and his staff will be able to make this work. It's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. But I've watched them now for 6 years, and I don't think anything that's been put in front of them has ever been too big for them to accomplish and conquer. I do want to say that we are very, very frugal with our spending in every department. There isn't any waste. There is no spending spree that we seem to be accused of going on, and especially not going on at the animal center. And once again, I do want to say that the community gets a great amount of return for very little investment with our animal center, and it goes back to utilizing all the resources, our volunteers, our staff, which is very small staff. Considering the size of this county and considering how many animals pass through that animal center, our staff is relatively small compared to other counties our size. And I think that goes back to the great job that Charlie does and his staff does, and I want the people of this county to know that, because if it wasn't true, I wouldn't say it here today. But thank you, Charlie, for what you do. All right, we ready to roll call vote?
Kaler.
Yes.
Hannum.
Yes.
Lewis. Mitchell.
Yes.
Moon.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item E1D, Drug Court Fund, Sheriff, $195,000. This is appropriate fund balance monies for needed equipment. Do I hear a motion to send this on?
So move.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Kaler.
Yes.
Hannum,
Yes.
Lewis. Mitchell,
Yes.
Moon.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item E1E from the library, appropriate fund balance monies for emergency compressor replacement for a chiller unit. Do I hear a motion to send this on?
So moved.
Have a
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussions or questions? Yes, sir.
Just one, Mr. Chairman, you said it is out of fund balance. I did notice the line item description was other. I just want to make sure that is fund balance. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other discussion? I'll ask for roll call vote, please.
Kaler,
Yes.
Hannum,
Yes.
Lewis. Mitchell,
Yes.
Moon.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Next up is for discussion and possible action. The library LSTA grant, there's no match required by the county. The Friends of the Library is matching, and this is for information only. Also, the budget updates for Blount County Sheriff's Office, that's information only. The finance report is in your packet, that is for your information only. And I do want to make an announcement that our next budget committee meeting will be on September the 6th at 5 o'clock. We're having to move that for Labor Day. We're having to move the meeting for that. Now I'll ask, is there any input on items not on the agenda?
I think Mr. Vineyard needs you to.
Yes.
On the library grant, there is a match, but the county's not matching it. It's Friends of the Library that'll be matching it. I just want to make sure, because it does state on here that there is a match required, but it's Friends of the Library that are matching.
I'll now ask, is there any input on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll hear a motion to adjourn. Move to adjourn.